Welcome to the Daily DLP. I'm your host, Thompson, and today I'm going to be talking to you, my esteemed and loving fans, about the Minnesota Vikings defense. Let's get it on. Okay, so the Minnesota defense is the brainchild of Brian Flores. Brian Flores is famous for two things. The first is taking the New England Patriots defense that was never good under Matt Patricia to the great heights that it went to immediately after it was freed from Patricia's grasp by the foolhardy Bob Quinn, to the point where the Dolphins' head coaching gig was granted to Flores 1 year after he became coordinator. He was a one-and-done coordinator in a good way. The other thing he's famous for is apparently alienating every member of the coaching, management, and playing staff on that Miami team to the point where they basically had no choice but to move on, despite the fact that he finished with 2 winning seasons in a row. He basically got fired because the vibes were off. Flores alleged that Dolphins owner Stephen Ross actually asked him to tank out loud to his face to improve their draft position in Flores' final year, and then fired him for actually winning too many games. I guess there's a third thing that Flores is famous for. He sued the NFL, calling out the complete BS of the Rooney Rule as it is implemented by most NFL teams, and how it actually leads to the media dismissing the legitimacy of minority head coaching candidates because they're just called Rooney Rule candidates and they're not taken seriously. But that doesn't have much to do with the game this week, so I won't belabor the point of how completely 100% correct he was about that. He was a linebacker for Boston College, but suffered a career-ending quad injury in 2003, back when career-ending injuries to players under the age of 30 were still a thing. He started his NFL career as a scout with the Patriots. And after 4 years of that, he moved on to the special teams assistant role with them in 2008. He added offensive assistant to his title as well. He was doing both gigs in 2010, and in 2011, he moved to the defensive side of the ball and never looked back. From 2012 to 2015, he was their safeties coach. 2016 to 2018, their linebackers coach. But in 2018, he was also the primary defensive play caller, one of Bill Belichick's antiquated mind games that he likes to play with his coaching staff. He is giving them responsibilities without giving them the title or money that goes with them. Wow. He dragged a garbage team to the playoffs in his first successful year at Miami. And then he was kind of the victim of his own success as the roster got worse and he couldn't really replicate the results by the end of the 2021 season. After losing that gig, he went to a place where they could not possibly do things more differently than the New England Patriots do. He was the linebackers coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. But that's not the most important thing that happened to Brian Flores in 2022. What did happen is he went to go watch the Pitt defense play. He took one look at their defense and fell in love. And this season, he is breaking the NFL with it. Let's look at a player like Josh Metellus. He's number 44. If you don't know who he is now, you're going to hate him on Sunday. He's listed at 5'11" and 207 pounds. Not a huge guy, but he's lined up at every position on the defense. Like usually when you get someone like this, it's an Adalius Thomas type, which is like a 260-pound pass rusher who just slides all over the place. Like a Josh Pascal kind of looking guy. This is basically it's if Brian Branch played defensive tackle every once in a while. He has 93 tackles going into week 16 against the Lions. He's forced 4 fumbles, has an interception, 2.5 sacks to go along with those tackles, and a whole pile of tackles for loss. And despite being used in an incredibly versatile way, he has actually played all 11 spots on the field. He still has a 73.8 grade from Pro Football Focus, which is a good starter grade. Usually when guys get moved around a whole bunch, they play badly enough in some of those spots that their grade's not great. A defensive coordinator like Matt Patricia would have either made Metellus gain 40 pounds and learn to be a bad stack and shed linebacker, or he would have just put him at safety and left him back there to not do things he does well. Flores puts him everywhere he can do something productive for him at any given moment. And like I said, if you don't already just fear what Metellus is going to do to the Lions offense on Sunday, you'll probably see why I kind of do. For Saturday, which day do they play this week? I don't even know. The holidays are killing me on this. But that's key one, is basically identifying where Josh Metellus is and what he's doing. Because he's their wild card. He's their Charlie Day from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. If you can't figure out what he's doing, you're sunk. Another thing about this defense that's kind of odd is I can't sit here and tell you much about the scheme that the Lions are likely to see from the Vikings. But I'm going to sum up why, in a quote from Raiders quarterback Aiden O'Connell, who the Vikings shut out. They make it hard to do your regular stuff, is what he said. Like, the things that you've put on tape, they will have a defense that is specifically planned to stop those things. And it's not the same stuff that they're doing. Like their safety, Harrison Smith, said, like, you get caught up in these boxes of defensive thinking. And it's really weird this year that they're not doing that. Like, there's a complete lack of loyalty to any one scheme or concept that is just unheard of at the NFL level. Like, NFL coaches love their schemes. Like, we all remember the Tampa 2. We all remember the Legion of Boom cover 3 defense that spread throughout the league. Tom Landry got on board with his 34 defense back in the day. And, you know, Buddy Ryan's 46 in the 80s, the 85 Bears defense. Flores is going to run elements of all of that at times this year. Like, I'm pretty sure I have seen all of those things happen in Minnesota's defense in all these games I've watched of them, because it's doing the around divisions. I've watched every Vikings game this year. He'll do all of those things, and the one thing that is absolutely true about him is that he will be obscenely aggressive going after your quarterback while he's doing it. Here are two statistics that are true going into week 16 of the NFL season. The Minnesota Vikings have blitzed one player, a single guy, on the smallest percentage of plays in the NFL. I'll let that sink in for a second. Here is the second statistic. The Minnesota Vikings have blitzed at the highest percentage of the NFL overall. So it's never a matter of finding which guy is coming. It's identifying how many guys are coming at once and where they're coming from. This is the tallest task in that regard that the Lions will face this season, regular season or playoffs. The Vikings blitz rate is 43.5 on the year percent. And they've actually cooled off significantly. After week 6, it was almost 60%. That's madness. The last year's leader was 38% or so. And just for a frame of reference, the Lions is 23.5%, and the lowest in the NFL is Indy at 15.2. But with that said, the Colts only have 10 fewer pressures on the quarterback in 2023 than the Vikings do. So that's key too. You can pick up their blitzes. And the Lions need to look at these 13 games of footage that they have. They need to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and they need to pick up those blitzes, figure out how to do that within their offense. They need to unlock those tendencies. Like, the Vikings blitz a lot. They do not get home more than other teams. They create confusion, so don't get confused. To make it worse, and it does just keep getting worse, this Vikings defense is very good. They don't just blitz 2 guys and then run cover 0 behind it, which is a very easy thing to get out of and manipulate. It could be cover 3 back there. It could be cover 2. It's just missing guys. So it's spread a lot more thin, and there are openings, but you have to find those. And it's on Jared Goff specifically to read that and find the open guy. It's on Ben Johnson to have plays in this week that have multiple answers depending on what that coverage behind the pressure is. Luckily, Ben Johnson's that kind of guy. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is the kind of guy who really helps with that. JMO's the kind of receiver who can make mistakes on the back end hurt and can make extra space look like it's a lot bigger than it actually is. I don't want you guys to think I'm hopeless here. Because the Vikings defense is really good, but I mean, this is not the 85 Bears we're talking about. It's just a really, really interesting defense to watch play. Another wrinkle that they throw in to make all of these things worse is that they will show like they're blitzing 3 or 4 guys and then drop 8 people into coverage and only have a 3-man rush. This gets the QB to audible into something that has hot routes and then fills the throwing lanes with bodies for those hot routes. And again, it's just a thing that the Lions have to have answers for in their preparation. Like, what happens if you call that hot route and then there are guys there? Where do you go from that? What is the second read when you don't end up with pressure from what looks like you're going to end up with pressure? So the key here basically, guys, is that Ben Johnson needs to step up and show us that he is that big brain offensive genius that everybody says he is. The reason all these teams are everyone is talking about him as the guy they want to have come coach their team. He needs to show us why this week. Undressing Brian Flores, who is another guy who will be a candidate for all of those exact same jobs, would be a huge victory for Ben Johnson this week. Over another guy, like I said, that I hope he's a one and done coordinator again. I would love nothing more than to see this defense go to some other division forever. And that's really your defensive keys to the game this week against the Vikings. I'll be traveling this weekend, and if you think I'm recording a podcast on Christmas Day, sorry. No, I'm going to be spending that time with my family. So I'm not really sure when the next one of these is going to happen. If I have time post game on Christmas Eve, I will do that, but I don't anticipate that being a thing. So it might be Wednesday before you get another one of these from me. But subscribe and turn on notifications. I'll shoot straight to your phone if you do that. When I'm talking about how great or how awfully the Lions handled this particular problem. See you next week.